All right, we're live. All right, well, it's Sunday again, and this is when Jasper and I get together and do our mastermind meetup. And we're opening it up to other people. Hopefully, we can be of service and bring you some value and give you some tips and tricks and tools or entertain you a little bit. So I'm Mark, and this is my son Jasper Cool, and we've been doing this mastermind for about 3 years, and then just started opening it up. I guess I don't know when. We're 26 episodes in, so almost a year ago, because we've had some botched episodes and some technical difficulties and stuff. So maybe for
Yeah.
30, 35 weeks, we've been doing this as a podcast, or trying to do it as a podcast. But now we have a body of episodes. So anyway, it's always great to see you, Jasper, and connect on a Sunday. And I guess we'll jump in with inspiration and education is where we usually start. Or if you have any highs and lows you want to check in about, and then segue into inspiration and education, just anything you've been listening to, watching, reading, or anything else that's inspired you or you learned from this week. You ready to dive into that?
Yeah, let's do it. I had a few things this week. I was listening to this video about Richard Branson, this guy named Dan Martell. I think I mentioned him before, but I follow him on YouTube now, and I like his videos. He puts out some really cool videos, but he spends time with some really successful people, one of them being Richard Branson, and he made a video just sharing like the lessons that he learned from hanging out with him over the years. And one of the things that stood out to me in that episode was that Richard Branson, he has like, an executive assistant that helps him with, all of his businesses, but he doesn't do technology. And I thought that was very interesting.
Oh, yeah.
Basically he meets with his assistant. Yeah, he meets with his assistant first thing every morning, and she'll kind of debrief him on anything that like is urgent that he needs to have input on, and then he'll kind of go back with her and give her any ideas or stuff that he wants to implement. And that's kind of like his one-to-one, and then she's one-to-many with all his managers or employees or whatever, all his businesses. But literally all he has is just a journal, and he just jots down ideas or notes or stuff that he wants to implement, and then he meets with her every morning over breakfast, and that's when he does it. And so he doesn't check his email or his phone or anything like that. She just does all that technology stuff for him, and he just stays kind of disconnected from it all. And I thought that was very inspiring for someone like that, because I know like some other CEOs that are at his level, like Elon or the tech CEOs and stuff, like they're constantly online, and like Elon Musk, he tweets all the time, like he's kind of opposite of that. But I just thought that was really interesting, and that's something, it sounds like really cool to be running that many million or billion dollar businesses and just not be checking email or doing anything like that. So that was inspiring for me, for sure. And then I had another one I wanted to share with you too. Let's see if I can remember it. Oh, it was Sahil Bloom, the guy that we I think we both subscribed to his newsletter, but he started making a YouTube channel as well. And I started watching some of his content this week, and I really liked it. And it's like really good quality editing and all that stuff. And he does like a cold plunge, like mini podcast or whatever, because he does a cold plunge every day.
Mm-hmm.
And so he just goes in the cold plunge for like 5 or 10 minutes, and then he just talks while he's in there. And he also lives in New York, and so his cold plunge is outside on the deck. So he literally goes outside, and there's like snow covering the whole deck and the cold plunge, and he just like shakes it all off and gets in there and does his cold plunge. That was crazy. And then he goes and he does like a run, like a 10-mile run, and then he works out. It's just like crazy to think about doing that in that cold weather. But I've been enjoying his stuff, and seeing his growth is really cool. So that was inspiring me too. And then lastly, I don't know. I think I have one more. I was listening to Logan Fulmer, as I was mentioning offline that one of my friends is going to go on Steve Trang's podcast in the future. And that inspired me to go to his channel, like check out some of his videos, because I haven't watched him in a while. And so I watched one on Logan Fulmer, which I think I mentioned him before on here, but this was like his most recent one. I think he did it, I don't know, a couple weeks ago. But he was just sharing his growth, because he was on Steve's podcast maybe a year or two ago. And since then, he's really just blown up. And he said it himself. I think he said like the last time he was on Steve's podcast, he had a certain size office, and now he has like a 15,000 square foot office. And I think the last time he was on Steve's podcast, he said like they were just starting to crack into doing like bigger deals, like doing their first $1 million type deals where the properties are worth, $1 million plus. And he said now like his smallest deal is like $1 million, and he's doing a $4 million, $10 million, $12 million deal, and he's just like really just growing and crushing it with that. And his niche is kind of similar to my friend, but just on a bigger scale. He's doing pretty much all commercial. So it can be, commercial vacant land, commercial warehouses, stuff like that. And he's typically buying and selling those as opposed to wholesaling. But like his model is similar to wholesaling because he's sourcing the deals off market, similar to us. And then he's usually taking them down and listing them because the spreads are so big, So
Yeah.
But he's also the guy I think I told you about before that's really into like title work and figuring out ways to get deals done that have all these crazy error situations that we deal with. Like he'll figure out a way to get those deals done. And one of the scenarios that he mentioned that I had never heard about before, I think you might have because you're more well versed with these scenarios. But he was saying that when there's multiple heirs involved on a sale, he will literally like reach out to one heir and offer to buy their stake. I didn't know you could do that. So, for example, if there are 4 heirs, each one owns 25%. Like if there's a difficult heir or whatever, he'll try to go and buy like 2 or 3 because then he has majority share. And then if there's that one difficult one, he's like, hey, look, I've got this much percentage. I can just like basically force you out. And I don't understand totally how he does that, but like he'll go and just be really creative with these different scenarios to get the deals done. And I
That's
thought that was
interesting.
really cool. Yeah, and last thing I shared, full disclaimer, listen to the full podcast because I might be butchering some of this stuff. But the last thing he shared was about tax sales. So especially when there's heirs involved, if he can go and buy a share of the property from one of the heirs, then he can get himself involved in the lawsuit, because when there's a tax sale, there's essentially a lawsuit against the owners because they didn't pay their taxes. And so if he can buy a share before their tax date is coming due, then he can get himself involved in that lawsuit. And then, whenever the sale does happen, he's entitled to the proceeds because he just bought a share. So I just thought that was really cool, like how all the different avenues that he's going to get these deals done.
Yeah, this goes back to like the more knowledge you have, the more value you create, right? Learning all that stuff.
Yeah. So that was a great episode. If anyone wants to listen, his name is Logan. I think his full name is Logan Bentley Fulmer, but I think it just goes by Logan Fulmer. And that podcast, like I said, I think it was last week or the week before on Steve Trang. So, but yeah, that's it for me.
Nice. Thanks for sharing that stuff. That's good stuff. Let's see what I have here for my notes. I'm still finishing up that Derek Sivers book, How to Live, which is really a great book. I read his other 2 books. I bought all 3 again because I, for whatever reason, didn't have them, so I've been reading them. Hell Yeah or No, How to Live, and then what's the third one? Anything You Want. It's about running a business and how he started his CBA business and dealt with it and everything. So I'm finishing up the third one, which is How to Live, and it's a bunch of different ways you could approach life, different philosophies, and it's fun because he fleshes everyone out. So finishing that out. I told you offline, Jasper, I'm working on the Unique Ability book, which is a strategic coach book from Dan Sullivan and one of his other co-authors, Catherine Nomura, I think is her name. She's a strategic coach person, and it's just about figuring out what your own unique abilities are, because everyone's like a snowflake and no one's exactly good at the same 2 things in the same way. So we all have our own unique abilities and what we're best at, and just talks about identifying that and then keeping yourself in that sweet spot as much as possible, because that's how you'll succeed the most in business and in the world. So I've been working on that, and I was telling you offline, Jasper, I reached out to some friends and people from my past I hadn't talked to in a while, and just asked them to give me feedback on what they thought my unique abilities were and my unique talents, and that was cool to get those responses back. So yeah, it's fun to work on that. It's kind of like a little mini project to just try and dial that in, and then look at people's feedback and see what's common and what everybody said to me about how they see me, and then compare that with what I think my unique ability is. And then I'm reading *Sapiens*, which is not a business book, but it's really interesting. It makes me feel smarter when I read it. I'm actually reading it. I'm not reading it. I'm listening to it on audiobook, but it's just a really it's another book that's on Naval Ravikant's reading list, and a lot of people recommend it. Like, it's been a bestseller, and people say read it because you'll learn more about history. And Jasper, you and I both talked about learning about history and how it informs the present, and it's just a good background to have. So anyway, the
Yeah,
history of humankind in an entertaining way, and really scientific and really insightful, and just easy to digest. So I've been enjoying that. It's been in the on my phone, like listening to it at the gym some, in the car some, etc. Just gradually taking it down because it's a big book, but I like it a lot. And then, well, I'm Spanish. Learning Spanish is one of my hobbies, so I found a new Spanish learning channel for anybody who's trying to better their Spanish. It's called Use Your Spanish on YouTube, but they only speak in Spanish. So I'm grateful that I'm at a level where I can, like, kind of work through these podcasts where it's kind of intermediate level, but
mhm,
he does not use any English words, so you have to kind of know some Spanish, but it's really good.
yeah,
Um, so yeah, that's my inspiration and education bit. And then normally we roll on to business and do, like, victories and challenges, any KPIs you want to share, and any stories you might have from the field on business. So Jasper, you up for doing that portion of it?
yeah. Let's do it. I'll start with KPIs for this week. So this week we got let's see, we got 93 leads this week. Put out 84 offers. So that's awesome. I
That's great.
don't know if I don't know if I shared the week before, but I basically kind of restructured my team over this past week, and I feel really good about it right now. So basically, I had let's see, uh, last week I had four cold callers that were essentially like my own cold callers that I was managing, and then I had one cold caller. I had another four through three different agencies. So I had a total of eight cold callers. Four of those, were kind of hands off, and four of those I was managing. And so I let go of the four that I was managing before this last week that we went through. And just because I went over the numbers, and they were kind of like the ones that I had a while ago, where they were sending us a lot of leads, but the lead quality was not good. And so I was just going through the numbers, and I gave them time. I think I gave them about 4 months to get some traction going. But basically, they had sent us the most quantity of leads, and we didn't get any closings from it. So I just made the decision to let them go. And maybe it'll be a wrong decision, and I'll close a bunch of deals next month. But if that's the case, I could probably try to bring them back on. But
And these are the
for now, I
people
think
that
that's the
you
right move.
hired off of VA sites that you were managing.
Yeah, exactly. And so, obviously, going that route, you're going to save money, but it's more management intensive, and that's not something I necessarily want right now. At least on the cold call side of things, I really enjoy working with my team. That we work together on the acquisition side of things, but it's not necessarily fun for me to manage cold callers right now. So basically, I let those people go. I hired one more caller from Callgeeks, and I hired one more caller from a company called Lead Gen Pros. And so basically, I went from having eight to down to six, but in a different structure. And so that was my first week with that. And one of the callers I hired isn't starting until Monday. So, um, but either way, I noticed the lead quality is up, even though the lead quantity is down. So, for example, 2 weeks ago I had 158 leads. This week we had 93 leads, but those 93 are better than having 158 because half of those were not necessarily good. So I feel like that's going to help us out going forward.
And
Um,
how are you
and then
determining quality
put
of
out.
your leads?
Well, I just look at a ratio. So right now, Callgeeks is the best for me in terms of their ratio because they sent me the fewest number of leads and we have the most closed deals. So that's how I'm determining lead quality. It's very simple,
Yeah.
because I can't look at every single lead over hundreds of leads and look like, oh, this is a good lead, this is a bad lead. I don't do it like that. That's probably the best way to do it. But I just look at the ratio. So if one company sends me 100 leads and I close one, and the next company sends me 75 and I close one, then their lead quality is better. That's just
Yeah.
the way I'm looking at it right now.
Do you give these companies a script, or do you let them work with whatever scripts they have in house?
I'm so for the agencies, I'm letting them do it 100% their way because I want to have a kind of a test against their model first. I guess I could also give them the same script and that could be the same thing, but first I just wanted to test their way first and see if it's working. And so for right now, they're all working. Like I said, Callgeeks has been my best experience so far. That's why I recommended them to you. But the other two are not bad. I've still gotten deals. It's just the ratio is slightly worse. So I'm still going to give them a little bit more time, and then I'll probably decide in a couple more months if I want to go all in on one agency or kind of keep it keep it spread out. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at right now with things. And then I also signed up for another launch control account this week, which is not complete yet. It's still in registration mode. But that'll give me 3 launch control accounts once that is ready. And hopefully that'll be next week, and then I can get up and running with that one. So I'm excited about that.
So you're going for more
Because
text, even though the rates are still down. It's still a better cost per lead than cold calling and obviously PPC.
yeah. So that's why I think we were talking about this on our last podcast because we
Yeah,
were sharing some numbers. But I noticed that Q4 last year texting really kind of went down for me, but Q1 this year it seems to have recovered, even though the system itself hasn't recovered, but my lead cost per lead has almost recovered 100%.
yeah,
And so when I noticed that, I was like, well, I might as well double down on it while it's still working and see how that goes. And also, I shared with you my philosophy in the past, and for anyone listening, I could definitely be wrong, but I saw this happen in 2020, 2021, and everyone flooded to texting. It was super easy. Everyone was closing deals. And then same thing happened. All the carriers shut down. All the companies changed their rules. Response rate dipped, and I quit. And I quit like everyone else. And then I noticed a couple of years later, all the people that didn't quit were closing a bunch of deals. And I was talking to a couple of buddies, and then I jumped back in. So this time, I'm not going to do that. I obviously turned down my whatever. I turned it down the volume. But going into Q2, I'm gonna ramp it back up because I think a lot of people are just quitting texting right now. And all the gurus I've noticed are saying quit texting, quit texting, quit texting. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to not quit texting because everyone else is going to quit texting. So
yeah,
that's that's my philosophy. I think as less people are doing it, then obviously the carriers might open the floodgates a little bit more, let us do more texting like we were in years past, and then I think it might improve. So I could be wrong, but that's what I'm going to go with for the next couple of months, see how it goes. And then I'll move on to my other KPIs. Don't make this too long. So those are leads and offers. We closed 2 deals this week. One of those is ours. One of those was a JV, and we sold 3 deals, and then we got 6 contracts this week. So overall, it
wow,
was a pretty banging week for us.
yeah,
Yeah, it was a pretty good week for us. I know you guys get like 6 contracts a week, but we don't. So that was really good for us. And selling 3 deals felt good, and then closing those 2 was good. One of those I think I mentioned to you before, but one of my buddies came out here a while back, and that was our first time hanging out, and we hit it off. And I guess it was like a token of appreciation, but he basically just gave me a couple $1,000 for helping them with this deal, so that was sweet and nice of him. But that deal closed this week. So that was the JV, and then we closed one on our own, which was good. And so I will share a story on this one for anyone who is listening and enjoys this. If not, I'll try to make it quick. But
I think
basically,
the
this was
stories are good.
a interesting deal because, well, I'll share the numbers on it briefly, and then I'll go into the deal. So this was a campaign we launched in May of 2023, so May of last year. SMS campaign as usual. And I guess I could share these numbers as well. So the campaign cost for the data and everything on this one was $290. We launched it in May of 23, and then this dude came in January of 24. And so that was about 7.5 months, I guess. So the lead came in January 24. Then once the lead came in, we contracted him pretty quickly. And we contracted him on the 18th. So he was only in our system for about 2 weeks, and we got a contract on him, which was awesome.
That's
and then we
great.
closed it this week, so first week of March. So from contract to close is about a month and a half. and then the full process from when the campaign to when we close, May to March. So that's about 10 months. So those are all those numbers on this for anyone who's interested. And this one was in Cumberland County, Fayetteville, North Carolina. But so for this deal, this was my first deal where I used Matt Larson's dispo strategy, which is to not share the full address and stuff, and it didn't work. And so I just want to share a brief story about that for everyone, because this will feed into my challenge that I wanted to check in with you later. So basically, I sent this deal out. It was a good deal for us, good profit deal, and I sent it out. I got a full asking price offer after a few people went out and saw the property and stuff. I got a full asking price offer. The people that I sent out there were obviously trusted buyers, because this property was owner occupied. In that case, I don't send anyone out that I don't know necessarily. Even if they might give me a better offer, it's just not worth it to me to potentially lose a deal. So only people that I've talked to and worked with before is who I'll send out to a owner occupied property. For tenant occupied, I don't care quite as much because they're not the owner. But for an owner, I don't want someone trying to steal the deal out from under us. So anyways, that all went well. Showings went well and everything. We got under contracts. This one, the seller needed some time to move out. That's the only reason we didn't close sooner. Buyer was obviously ready to go, but he wanted to close first week of March. So that's what we did. But in the interim there, I don't know who it was, but a couple people I think reached out to him. He reached out to our attorney first and asked them to cancel the deal. They basically told him that's not necessarily how it works, and that he should reach out to me. And they were very nice about it, but they were basically just telling him like, hey, well, if you do want to cancel, first of all, you have to reach out to the buyer, and you might be, responsible for paying our legal fees, their legal fees, any sort of thing like that. So they were very nice about it. He reached out to me, and I was not mean to him either. I basically played the kind of confused role, and I was like, wait, I thought we had a deal, all this stuff. I'm confused. What's going on? Why are you considering other offers? And, he basically just told me he got a higher offer as I knew it would happen. But it's a bummer because you don't know in this scenario who it was. And so that's always a bummer. But basically, we smoothed it over and still got it closed. But it was interesting because, like I said, I used Matt's strategy. I didn't send out the full address, didn't have it listed in anywhere in the pictures. There wasn't a visible way to see the address in the pictures or anything. And it still happened. So that was interesting for me.
Yeah.
And so after that, I kind of went even more down that route on my next few deals, because I was kind of bummed out that it's still happening, and it still happened. And so that'll lead me into challenges, but I guess I'll put that on pause and I'll share.
Are you filing the memorandum every time you get it?
What's that?
Are you filing the memorandum on each contract?
Yeah, I just do that before this even happens, because it happens on every deal.
I'm just wondering if somebody is monitoring memorandums and then going after things where memorandums are filed.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Because that's the only thing I can think of how they could find it if you're not sending it to your broad mailing list or advertising it. If you file a memorandum, it's public record.
Yeah, that's true.
And memorandums, as we know, can be circumvented, even though we like to think they're effective. They're not always.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. I don't know. But it is a good point. I didn't even think about that.
It's the only public record somebody could monitor.
Yeah.
Unless they're poaching your email or poaching the attorney's email.
Yeah, I did realize that, even though I don't share the address and I don't share the number or whatever, in that example, I did share the street. And so someone who's smart enough can just go on Google Street View on that street, look at every single house, and then try to match it up, right? So I realized that could be done. And so that's why I think Matt shared that sometimes they don't even do street name. They'll just do the neighborhood it's in.
Yeah.
But then if you do the neighborhood, someone can do the same thing. So now I'm just I don't know, but I'll try to put it on pause and I'll check in on challenges. I'll just share victories real quick. So for this week, I think the biggest victory for me was that PPC is finally yielding a couple contracts for us that are actually going to close, which is awesome.
That's good.
So we got one contract this week from PPC in Branson, North Carolina, which is, that was last week, but we sold it this week. And so that one's going to close. That'll be our first closing from PPC, which I'm super excited about. And then we got another one this week in Fayetteville, North Carolina. So I think I shared on the pod or off that we had a couple contracts before from PPC, just totally in the middle of nowhere. and they didn't pan out. So these two, I haven't marketed the Fayetteville property yet, but it's in a good area, and I'm pretty confident we'll sell that one too. So it seems like the dude was right when he was telling me that it takes about 3 months to start seeing better results. And so it's nice to see that actually coming true, because I was a bit nervous.
Are you 3 months in now?
Yeah, so this is our 4th month, March,
Okay.
and 2 contracts in 2 weeks. 1 contract last week, 1 contract this week. So if that'll keeps up and we can get a contract a week, I am ecstatic with PPC. That'd be amazing. So I'm excited to see where it goes. But yeah, so that was a victory for sure. And then I already shared about the closings. So what else we got? Oh, I got another one that I've been working on for a while with title issues. We finally got those title issues solved. That one's going to close next week. We got the notary out to this guy, which is always fun when you're working with a truck driver who doesn't really have a house. And so that was fun to to track him down and get a notary to sign with him. But he's a super nice guy, so I'm happy that we'll be able to close it for him next week. And then I know I had another one I wanted to share with you, but now I'm blanking on it. Either way, I guess I can go into challenges. I feel like I had one more that I wanted to share with you. That's okay. I don't want to delay too long. All right, so I'll go into challenges. So the challenges.
Jump back in.
What's that?
I said you can always jump back in if you remember it.
But yeah, so challenges were one of them. I had this deal that was scheduled to close in January, and I don't know if I shared this story before, so I'll be brief. But this was scheduled to close in January. There was a tenant in the property that was, not paying, and that's why the seller wanted to sell. And so they were supposed to be out by a closing date in January, and the buyer in this case, his lender wired the funds before the buyer had a chance to go and confirm vacancy. Before we closed, he was going to just make sure that property's vacant and get the keys from the tenant and everything. And his lender, I guess, was super excited to get into this deal, because it was not a traditional lender. It's like he's raising money from a private individual. And so his lender kind of jumped the gun a little bit, wired the funds in, and then kind of played hardball with the buyer. And he was like, no, I'm not taking my money. I'm not getting a refund. I'm lending this deal, basically. I did my part. And so basically the lender has been charging him interest for 2 months now, because we didn't close in January, didn't close in February. And now we still haven't closed. And so the buyer's super pissed because he's paying interest on a house that he can't do anything on because he doesn't even own it. And the tenant is just horrible. And so I don't know, I've been kind of at a loss, because we've just been working with her. And the owner has been too. He's been driving out there. He lives a couple hours away, and he's driving out there once a week, just trying to get her out of there. And I've been offering her money, all this stuff, and it's just not working. And so I'm kind of at a loss. I just want to get some feedback from you if you have any other ideas. But this Friday, she was like, okay, this is the date I'm going to be out. And I had offered her $1,000 if she was out the week prior. And I was like, well, I don't know, I don't know how much longer we could do this. Are you actually going to be out? And she's like, yeah, I'm going to be out. And I was like, okay. And so I had it all set up. I had this guy going out to bring her a check for $1,000. I was like, we're going to get the keys. We're going to give you $1,000. Boom. We're good to go. And she's not out. So it's just frustrating, because I feel bad, even though it's not necessarily my fault that his lender wired the funds, but this dude is paying, hundreds of dollars in interest for 2 months now. It's looking like a third month, and we still can't close. And so on my end, it's frustrating, because the lender is kind of the main issue here. Because had he not done that, there's no issue on the buyer's end necessarily. He might be frustrated, but not really. And had he not done that also, I could just cancel with this buyer and sell to someone else. Because I have plenty of buyers who will buy properties like this and go ahead and evict the tenant afterwards, and they won't wait for it to be vacant. This buyer specifically, it was my best offer. That's why I took it. But now it's kind of frustrating, because I can't do anything, and we also can't close. And the buyer's pissed, at me, and it's just kind of a weird scenario. And the tenant just sucks, and so it's I don't necessarily know what to do. But if it weren't for that lender, I would have just sold it to someone else and already closed. And so the seller's frustrated because we can't close, but he understands because his tenant sucks. The buyer's frustrated, because I can't get the tenant out, and then just everyone's frustrated. The lender's frustrated probably too. The closing attorney's pissed. So, anyways, that's the long and short of it. Just want to get your feedback.
Man. it's funny because we have a couple of these right now with tenants too, which I can check in about later. But
Yeah.
so does the seller not want to file eviction?
Oh, he can't. This is no. I mean, I guess he could, but there's no sort of lease in place at all. The tenant that was living there left, and his girlfriend is the one that's there. So
You can still evict if there's no lease. You can just put. I mean, if there's no lease, it's a 7-day eviction.
yeah.
The way I
Well, I
understand it.
mean, he could try that, but I don't know. I've had sellers that have tried to evict and it doesn't work, so I don't really know. But he didn't sound like he was willing to do that.
Yeah. I mean, that would be the first thing is to just like put file for eviction, put a notice on the door, and get the sheriff to come out there and like
Yeah,
really make some make it obvious, and make it you know real for the tenant. But it seems like with the cash for keys too, you should not be giving her money anymore if she missed the deadline. Like you should be, hey, it's $1,000 if you do it by this day, but it goes down $100 every day that you're still there, or something like that.
yeah,
Because that obviously didn't work with her. But
yeah,
yeah, it's like you said, the lender's the big problem because they funded the deal when it wasn't time to fund it, and now they're trying to charge interest, and they really shouldn't be. They're not taking any ownership of that. That they didn't communicate well with the buyer to make sure that the place was vacant to fund the deal. I mean,
yeah,
like broken communication there somewhere between the buyer and the
yeah,
lender. It sounds like I don't know what to do about this, man. I mean, these tenants that won't leave unless you're going to evict them. I don't know what to do. Like if you've already tried cash for keys and they $1,000 hasn't been enough for her to move out. Probably there's something in there with her trying to get her ex back, right?
yeah, definitely.
She knows he wants this thing, so she's just making it hard on him. Yeah, I don't really have an answer, unfortunately. The
Yeah, well, that's okay.
eviction is the biggest thing I can think of, really.
Yeah, I'll just have to see if he's willing to do that again.
But as far as I
Um,
understand, if there's no lease in place, it's a 7-day notice, and then you can evict.
yeah,
But you don't think that matters? You don't think it's going to work?
yeah. I mean, maybe. I don't know. I've dealt with lots of fun tenants, and that's why I messed up on this one, by selling it to this guy because I trusted that the seller would get this tenant out like he told me he would, and he didn't. So that was my fault because I've dealt with a lot of these scenarios, and I always just tell the buyer straight up like, hey, this tenant's in the property, they're not going to leave, you're going to have to evict. Will you buy it? And then I just sell it to a buyer like that who says yes. So that was my fault on this one. But,
We have a document in our drive, because of this stuff. And for a tenant who has no lease or a month-to-month lease in North Carolina, the landlord can serve them a 7-day notice to vacate to terminate the tenancy. This lease termination notice allows the tenant 7 calendar days to move out. And after that, you can take action. And, as we know, action can take a while, but at least, you only need to give them a 7-day notice, and then you can start moving towards getting them out of there. So that's an option
yeah,
for the seller. But yeah, it's like you said. I mean,
yeah.
if you
All right. Well, I'll let him know that on tomorrow. Let's see if we can get it done. Ooh.
it might be the way to go. I can check in about my other thing, but I've got a similar thing. So uh,
Yeah.
where my buyers have
Um,
not taken action to evict, and I have a concern that she was supposed to be out by the first of this month, and now it's going to be the 15th. And then it's just like if you guys had filed the eviction a month ago when we first were talking about this, then we'd be in a better position. But um, we'll see.
yeah. Definitely.
But they didn't want to file the eviction because it was a relative, and they didn't want to be that aggro about it. But then it turns into a situation like this.
Yeah. Definitely. Hmm.
But
Alrighty. Well,
having a buyer who is willing to evict the tenants on their own is a nice thing too.
yeah, definitely. But yeah, I had one other challenge that I was going to check in with you about, and then we can move over because I know it took a little while. Uh, but so the other challenge I was going to check in with you about is about the dispo side of things that I kind of touched on earlier. So um, basically, I had an issue with that other deal, but I don't know if it's a combination of me growing my buyers list or more wholesalers flooding the market this year. You know, because there's more and more gurus every single day. But
Yeah, everybody's a
every
guru.
single contract, yeah, every single contract we've gotten this year has had someone or multiple people contacting our seller, and so it's frustrating. Um, and I think what I'm going to do going forward is to pretty much just stop blasting my deals. But my first thought was like, oh, I could just buy everything and list it on the MLS because that way I make a lot more money. But it is a lot more time involved, and it's a lot more paperwork and it's a lot more headache. And so I don't necessarily know if I want to do that. So going forward, starting now, starting tomorrow, when I blast out my next couple of deals, it's only going to be to people that I've worked with before and that I know and trust. And so that list has went from about 1,500 buyers to 50, and I'm starting that tomorrow. But if it still happens, then I don't necessarily know who it is because these people are all like, it's not even just people I've worked with; it's people I've worked with multiple times. I've met in person, like I've talked to. We've known each other for years, and so I don't suspect that any of these people are the ones that are actually trying to snake my deals that's been going on. But that's what I'm going to try. But yeah, I guess I'm just curious about your feedback. If you think maybe buying and listing everything might be better, or if there's maybe another route. Because like I said, I tried Matt's thing for about 2 months now. I mean, I started that in January. It's March, so that didn't work. So yeah, I'm gonna try a new approach, but just want to get your opinion.
Yeah, yeah, we've had more of that too. We've had more people coming in, and it's not always obvious somebody has stolen your deal, but we've had multiple sellers cancel on us. So that's kind of
Yeah,
like saying to me that somebody's going around us. If the seller all of a sudden has a change of heart the week of the closing or something like that, which we've had a few times.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so one thought I have about this is that it might not even be people who are aware of your contract with the seller. It might just be the flooding of the market, like you were saying. It might just be that there are so many people calling and texting every seller in Cumberland County, for example, or Durham County, of course. I mean, Durham County and Raleigh, Wake, all that orange. But it just might be that you go under
Mhm.
contract, but the person's still taking calls. And then somebody goes, "Oh, you're under contract? What's the price you have?" "Oh, we can give you more than that." Right. And I think it might just be that, and not
Yeah,
necessarily people coming off
that's
of
true.
your,
Yeah,
like I have that concern with a couple of my deals right now where I've got some really good deals, and I'm like, man, what if somebody calls them and they tell them what they're doing, and then they say, "Well, we'll give you 1,000 or 2,000 or 5,000 more." Um, so then it comes down to
hmm
building relationship with the sellers and building trust and trying to cement the rapport with them, is one piece. But as far as the buying thing goes, we've been doing that, as you know. Like we just the last two deals where we had a big profit margin or a pretty good profit margin built in, we just bought the deal because we didn't want to mess around with potentially losing
hmm
it. Like, we just did a $50,000 deal at the end of last year. I was like, there's no way I'm going to risk somebody coming behind me or around me on this. I'm just going to buy it. Um, the trick with that, as you
yeah,
know, is like you can only buy so many deals no matter how much money you have. Like it doesn't matter if you have $10 million. Like if you're buying every deal at a certain point, you're going to run out of cash. Then you have to get outside investors or
yeah,
partners, or you can only limit the amount of deals you can do because you have to sell this one to have the cash to buy the next one. So um, it's nice to be in a place to have cash and be able to do that, but it's not sustainable. Depending on the volume you want to do, it's not 100% sustainable. I still would recommend that if you have a solid deal that is going to be a good profit, to buy it, because that's what we're starting to do. We're just starting to buy it, and one advantage it
yeah,
gives us over all these wholesalers flooding the markets who don't have any money and they're just new in the game is that we have war chests, we have some cash where we can actually buy deals and lock it down. So um, That's one way, and then the other thing I'm starting to do, I can do with my check-in, is the sub two thing, because you can take that over pretty quickly too. You can close pretty quickly if you don't have all the cash to
Yeah.
buy the deal. Like I had a deal this week that was a wholesale deal, and I was just like, I said to the seller, I was on the phone with him, and I was like, "Hey, this is a crazy idea, but would you consider just you know getting your cash and letting us take over the loan for a period while we fix it up and do what's next?" And he was like, "Oh, I'd be open to that." So I just pitched him sub two instead of doing the wholesale, because the loan on there is 87K. So I didn't want to come out of pocket 87 plus his
Mhm.
portion, and then so anyway. I don't know if that's helpful, but it's another way to do it. It's just like not come out of pocket, be like, hey, we're just gonna take over this loan for a few months while we fix it up and do whatever we need to do to sell it or rent it, and then we'll pay off your loan too. And then you can do a subtail, which is I'm going to
Yeah.
looking into doing subtails also, because if there's a loan in place, and I know you're dealing with a lot of places that don't have loans, entire landlords and free and clear and stuff, but we're doing some higher equity things because we want to do some sub two. So that's another
Yeah.
thing, is to go into,
Definitely.
like, I'm going back to sub two now because I feel like everybody is pulling tired landlord, high equity, vacant, whatever. So I'm now pulling low equity, newer houses, and trying to find people that are motivated but have a mortgage in place so that I can do sub two on them, because I know they're sub two gurus, but I think people are still intimidated by sub two in general as wholesalers. I mean, in the investor community,
Yeah.
and wholesaling feels easier. So I'm like, well, I'm going to zag into something that not everybody's doing. Even though, like, as we know, Pace Morby has 1,000 million sub two students now, but how many of them are actually active?
Yeah.
So anyway, I don't know
That's
if
a good
that's
point.
helpful.
Yeah, I appreciate it. No, definitely. I appreciate it. I appreciate the two things you shared because I didn't think about that. Well, especially the memorandum thing. I never thought that someone could possibly poach that way. So that's a good point. Um, and then also, just not people not necessarily snaking me, but just having more wholesalers in the market could just be a byproduct of this. And I will share for those listening. Like, I don't want to scare people. 9 times out of 10, when this happens, it's not a big deal. Like I shared on my deal story, like you just play it off with the seller, like, hey, Mr. Seller, just like we're talking about. There's a lot of newer investors that are coming into this market. They might offer you more money than us, but we don't know if they're actually going to close. They might just offer you that money, come and see your house, and then reduce the price on you. We're solid, blah blah blah. I play off of that. We've already seen the property. We can close at this date. We can do this. We can do this. We've been in business this long. These are our views. All that sort of thing.
Yeah, we closed.
And
I,
nine
I
times out of
use like
ten,
we closed 50 deals last year. We do this all the time, et cetera, et cetera.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. And I just always try to play it off like, Mr. Seller, we close this many deals on a monthly basis on average, and this happens on almost every deal. And a lot of times, we just it's not actually a real investor on the other side of this
yeah.
offer,
Ask
all
them,
that stuff. But
when they can close. Ask them where the cash is coming from. Ask them how many deals they've closed. Or how many deals they close
yeah,
every year. Yeah.
yeah. Exactly. So yeah, I just want to share that with anyone listening. Like, most of the time you can smooth it over. I think it's like 1 out of 10 that's they'll do this to us and then they'll just end up ghosting us and we can never get a hold of them again. And those we lose. But most of the time you can smooth it over. It's a little bit frustrating to have to run into that objection on every deal.
Yeah,
But
and
that's
building
okay. It's
rapport is important too.
part of
Like, the more you can connect with your seller and build trust and rapport and connection, the more likely, if somebody calls them, they're like, "Oh no, I'm going with Jasper. I've got a good relationship with him. I trust him. Seems like a good guy."
yeah, yeah.
And the
So
other the other thing to handle that objection too is,
yeah,
like,
let's wrap it up. And
just questioning that person's character. Like, what kind of a person do you want to deal with? The type of person who tries to go around somebody else's deal. Is that the type of person you want to work with?
yeah,
Because that's another, throwing their character into question of like, well, does this person know we have a deal and they're still trying to do this? Is that the type of person you want to work with? You know, somebody who goes, does that,
yeah,
if they're going to go
definitely.
around the deal that you have with us, what's to think that they wouldn't do something similar to you?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's all good points. So thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, we can switch over to yours.
Thanks for joining. It's a good topic to discuss because it's happening, more and more, it seems like. Like you
Yeah.
said, there are a lot of gurus out there. Everybody's a guru. uh,
Yeah.
close a few deals and make a course and sell it. Okay. Well, I
Yeah.
guess I'll do mine. I know this is maybe a longer episode, but hopefully we bring some value or the discussion's helpful to people. Um, so victories for me, I've had as a victory. I set up Colby, which is a personality assessment. I talked previously on this podcast about Culture Index, which is a similar thing. The Colby measures your cognitive predispositions, which is how you make decisions emotionally and how you act. And it's got like 4 different categories, and it gives you a rating in each category, and it gives you insight into your personality and what you should be doing more of and less of. Sort of your 80-20 of your personality, like where should I be spending 80% of my time and my 20% of my best abilities and what places I'm good at. So that was good to get that set up for my team. I'll have the team take those assessments this week, and it'll help us with our making sure everybody's in their best seat on the bus to help us be productive, and also helping us interact with each other and know who to go to for various things on the team. So that was exciting for me to get that in place, get a business account set up for that. I also met with my strategic coach program advisor this week and got more help and clarity about my direction and the tools that I can use in strategic coach to help my business. And I actually used one this week. There's a tool, and it's probably in the Dan Sullivan, Ben Hart books. There's a tool called the impact filter that I've been using more, and it's just sort of like being more purposeful when I'm doing a project or working on a segment of the business to like identify what the project is, identify what the desired result is, what the obstacles might be, what the best result would be out of it, what the finished product looks like, or if I get it done the way I want it to do. Like it's just like pre-thinking the thing so that it helps to get it done in a good way and get clarity of vision. So I've been using that as a victory. Been doing it with some hiring that I'm working on and some other facets of the business I'm looking to grow. And then we locked down our first subject to deal as a team. We haven't done subject twos. I did it prior to starting this business with a team, but then we just started marketing for subject two again, and we locked down our first deal this past
Oh,
week.
that's awesome.
Great. Yeah, very exciting. Looks like it'll be a good
Yeah.
profit deal. It was really easy to work with the seller and explain it to him and get the contract signed, and then I've got the authorization to release information and stuff like that, so we can work with the bank. But yeah, I'm excited because I started off doing sub two, and then I segued into land, and I've studied sub two a lot. I was actually on William Tingle's podcast when I did my first deal. I just actually re-listened to that because I was creating a document for my team about sub two and how it works and everything, and it was
Yeah.
fun to go back and listen to the breakdown of that deal. Um, so then, and I've got another subject to in the works that I talked with a guy and got him the offer in his hands last week, and he's going to talk to his wife this weekend. Talk to him on Tuesday about getting that locked down. Um, and then the time system, the entrepreneurial time system for strategic coaches helped me to segment my time and be more focused uh, since I've been looking at that. So that's probably in the books too, but it's just like breaking your days into what they call buffer days, focus days. And the focus days are the days when I try and do my highest revenue producing skills, and I just try and fill the day with those. And then the buffer days are the days where you do stuff, like admin stuff or things that just need to be done to keep the business going, or even following up on the focus days. Like if my focus ability is calling and talking to sellers to lock them down onto sub twos, and then there's a follow up day on the buffer where they're making sure the contracts are put together and making the notes in Podio or whatever it is, that where I might not have done it all. So
Yeah.
and I've got a lot of stuff to fill buffer days with while I build a business. So it's been nice to go, okay, today's a buffer day where I'm just doing all these tasks that need to get done to move the business forward. And then today's a focus day where I'm just trying to generate revenue. So that's been good for me. Got another 5-star review
Yeah.
this week from some buyers we worked with. Of course, they'd better leave us a 5-star
Sweet.
review because they made 30K on top of us on that deal that we talked about last week. Uh, we made like 16, and then they made an additional 30 on top. So that was a painful lesson for us. But anyway, they give us a 5-star review. Uh, and we started doing the 5-star reviews more personally and manually. We had sort of had it automated where we'd send people a text or an email or both and ask them for a review. And now we're just like reaching out, either acquisitions or disposition, is just reaching out to the person and saying, "Hey, would you mind leaving us a 5-star review?" And since we've done that, we like doubled our 5-star review or our reviews since the beginning of time
Yeah.
business. Like we had like 7 reviews on our business page for the last year and a half, and now we've gotten 7 in the last few weeks. Because we're just asking people for more. So that's good. Just
Yeah.
build our presence. Deal Lab was perfect for me this week. Matt Larson, Jasper, and I are both in this mastermind called Deal Lab with Matt Larson, who's a great investor teacher.
Yeah, that was a great one.
Yeah, and so it's funny because hiring is a big issue for me right now, and I'm working on a few different hires to grow the business. And so he was talking about hiring and how he goes about it. And also he talked a little bit about systematizing your company, which I've been working on from the beginning too, of just like making sure you have your processes documented and making sure that everything is lined up. So it makes it easier when you do hire for somebody to come on board and have the resources there so you don't have to retrain everybody from scratch. But also, if you ever want to sell
Yeah.
your business, you want to have all of your processes and your departments and everything documented and systematized so that it's actually a business. It's something that you can sell and not just like, hey, we do a lot of business, buy our business. Uh,
Yeah.
so yeah, so that was good. The Deal Lab this week. Um, and then I did one of my hires has been to just improve our web presence and to improve our website because we had an issue. I mean, one of the sellers who canceled on us was like, well, they didn't trust us, blah, blah, blah. There was just a smokescreen, but it prompted us to go, well, let's just make our website really solid and make it more of a vehicle for building trust with sellers and buyers. So I'm going to hire somebody, and I've got an appointment with a guy after I got like, as you do on Upwork, I got like 70 responses. And so I ended up weeding it down to 3 or 4, and then I actually reviewed the website samples and stuff. And I've got one guy I'm meeting with this week, so that was a victory. Just the hiring process.
Yeah, your site looks great.
Say it again.
I was saying, I think your site looks great already, so I'm interested to see
Oh,
what it looks
thanks.
like.
Yeah,
You
I've got
change
some
it.
ideas about how I want to improve it. It just, I want to get our team up there with photos of the team and like little bios and stuff like that, so that when people are dealing with the company, they can look and go, oh, there's Lucky or there's Mark, or they can see us.
Yeah.
Just have a picture and a little bio. I think for some people, there's
Yeah.
a certain personality type, right? And you can go through the personality types of sellers. And some people are a type that needs all the information they can possibly get in order to make a decision. So those are the people that are like going on our website, searching us on Google Business, searching us on the Better Business Bureau, on and on and on. So the more we can check those boxes and have a site that builds confidence for them and other things they can check and feel confident, the better. It goes back to what we were just talking about of like, if maybe that person's process is not talking to you on the phone and feeling like you're a good guy, but it's seeing in 5 different places that other people have worked with you and that you're a viable business and you've been in business for years and you've closed deals, etc. But they need to see it by doing the research.
Yeah. Yeah.
Different personality types. And I got an EMD back on a property that again, we talked about this last week, but that EMD came back to us this week, and it's just an issue with lawyers being afraid to give EMDs back, even though our contract states explicitly they give it back to us if the buyer defaults. So we let the
Yeah.
closing date pass, and the buyer had not closed on the closing date, and then the lawyer felt comfortable giving it back to us. So we did receive an EMD back on a property where the buyer canceled without apology or any real reason, just like, hey, we found a better deal, we're not going to do this one. So we're like, okay, well, we're keeping your money.
Yeah.
And then the lawyer was like, well, you've got to have a termination of contract signed by both parties, and we're like, no, we don't. But anyway, it's just nice to get that back.
Yeah.
KPIs, this was a slow week for
That's
us,
awesome.
so challenging. We had 0 solds and 0 closed this week, so that's not where I want to be, but c'est la vie. We've got a couple in escrow. 2 contracts was a really light week for us as well. We normally get more contracts than 2. One was a vacant lot. One was the subject to house that I just mentioned. And we've got we've got other pending stuff and stuff out there. We got a lot of offers out. I can't remember how many offers we put out last week, but it was in the 30s, I believe. So that's good for us. Um,
Yeah.
SMS, we sent about 10,000 SMS this week. last week I set a goal of basically doubling our lead generation. So I'm working towards that right now. So, we got 10,000 texts sent out this week. The delivery rate dropped this week. Since checking in about SMS every week, I'll just briefly hit this stuff. Our delivery rate dropped down to 78%. So we're in process with launch control about why that could be. Um,
Yeah.
and then, because normally it's more like 90. The response rate's still around 10 or
Hmm.
11% for our initial message, and closer to 20% for the follow-ups. Uh, Follow-up rates are way better.
Nice.
Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
so that's victories and KPIs. As far as sub two, I figured I'd just quickly hit sub two for anybody who's curious about it. Subject two is
Yeah.
buying a property subject to the existing loan. So it's essentially you're taking over the payments for the seller, but their name remains on the loan, which is sometimes a tricky sell for people. But the what I sell is the upside of like, hey, we can close more quickly. We don't have to, get cash to close out your loan. You actually build your credit on this because we're making the payments on time. We pay any arrears, so your loan is brought current. Your credit's saved. In a case of foreclosure, the foreclosure gets staved off, and we put it back to rights. And then, as you're paying these payments, you're building the seller's credit. I've got a whole frequently asked questions page that I've done because people will ask you about what if I want to get another loan, which they can do, and you can prove that you're paying the payments. I think the first year, it's like 70% of the loan comes off your debt to income ratio, and by year two, it's 100% comes off as long as you prove that somebody else is making the payment. So people can get another loan. Um, so as far as the specific deal that I did, this one was it's a deal with a husband and wife, and they are divorced, and it was kind of a messy divorce. And so, we're looking for with subject to we're looking for low equity with a loan in place, preferably with a lower interest rate. And this loan does have like a lower rate. I think it's like 5%, because then we can make money by seller financing it at a higher percent. I know I'm going kind of fast, but I don't want to belabor this whole thing. Well, this one was a SMS lead from a low equity campaign. And so we got the lead in. They're motivated sellers. They're divorced. They're both out of the house. They unfortunately put a tenant in there who paid month rent for a few months and then stopped paying and is not leaving, and did some weird stuff like renting out rooms to not Section 8, but like through some organization, they're renting out rooms or something, which they're not allowed to do. So it's kind of a mess. And the divorce between the parties was kind of messy too, and there were restraining orders and all this crazy shit. So when you get into situations of
Yeah.
distress, there's payments in arrears that the sellers can't overcome, and they're headed toward foreclosure. And they want to save their credit, or they don't want to be foreclosed on. They just want to walk away from the house. They want to be done with the divorce or the stress of the house, whatever it is. That's the lead, right? And so then in this case, we're getting the seller some cash out. We're taking over the loan subject to, and we're paying the arrears, which, are not too big for us to overcome, out of pocket. So then we'll bring it current. We have a relatively low mortgage payment in there, so we can either subtail this and just sell the property because the price we're getting it at, there's definitely equity to sell it retail. So we either subtail it, or um, we will find a buyer and do an owner finance thing and just keep the loan in place. And then we do a loan on top of it, but the monthly payment's more, so we cash flow. William Tingle teaches it as a three profit center deal where your profits are as follows. You get a profit on the down payment from the seller. And in this case, the arrears are what we'd be putting into it plus the cash to the sellers. So our down payment would be more than the total that we put out. So we'd make some cash on that. Then you make your cash on the monthly payment. And in this case, given the mortgage payment and the market rent for that property, we looks like we could make somewhere between 300 and 500 a month on the spread,
Nice.
you know, and then you get your back end money because you've got an underlying loan at like 5%, and then you've got a loan where in this case, for the prime rate's like 7 or 8%. So we're probably going to be charging 9 or 10% against a 5%, so that means that compound interest, all the interest is up front. So we're making money on that interest. And even when they cash it
Yeah.
out, our sales price is bigger than the price we paid for the house. So that's the third profit center, as you're making cash on the back end when they cash you out. or payoff.
Yeah.
So it's a 3 profit center deal.
Well, that's 4 then, isn't it?
Well, it's 4, but I guess the second one is technically the same as the monthly spread because it is. I mean, you're
Yeah.
creating profit from your sales price, and you're creating profit from the disparity in interest rate and the payment. So I think that would technically count as 1, and then you got the upfront profit.
Okay.
So yeah, it's 3 or 4
Yeah, yeah.
profit. William Tingle teaches it as 3 profit center deal, but yeah, so
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome,
so
you
that's how
win.
that works. Yeah, and like I said, we got another one in the works, but I'm happy to help people with the subject too if they need help or JV or whatever. Um, I'm not a guru, but we're just trying to share whatever we know with people and help. You know, I see it as like a go giver or a pay it forward type mentality that we have with this. It's just like we had a lot of people who helped us get deals and learn the process, and I'd like to help other people change their lives and
Yeah.
make them better. So um, yeah, so I just figured I'd run through that in a nutshell. And so actually, Jasper, what the guy, our rock star boots on the ground guy is going over there this week to meet with the seller and the sheriff to walk through and take photos because the tenant's belligerent and the next door
Nice.
neighbor is the mother of the tenant. So she came out, I guess, last time they tried to do an inspection. And anyway, it'll be interesting. But it's a good job. It's worth
Yeah,
dealing with the tenant situation and stuff. And
that's funny.
yeah, so I'll segue into challenges. I know we have a longer session here. The challenges. It's interesting you talked about cold caller because we're using one of the services you described, and our acquisitions lead manager is not super excited about them and the quality of leads so far. We have a limited sample size. We're 3 weeks in. We're getting roughly 20 leads per week. Quality has been, a little bit spotty according to her. I haven't been reviewing the leads personally. And then she listened to some of the calls and felt like the calls are pretty flat, just like asking questions off of a script. And she wasn't impressed.
Yeah.
So our acquisitions person wants to go the opposite of you, Jasper. She wants to bring on an in-house caller so that we can train them in-house and be interactive with them and have them working according to our intake process more closely. So uh,
Yeah.
we're, jury's still out. We're kind of waiting to see on these leads what the quality is, obviously, and if we're going to get some contracts and closings from them. There's a 3-month trial period with this service, so I'm in for that. And but we might look at hiring an in-house caller and maybe somebody who's already got experience and see if we can have our acquisitions team sort of bring them into the fold. We'll see.
Yeah.
So I'd be going the opposite direction of you. But this is our first foray
Oh,
into cold
dude.
calling, so we're still figuring it out. And we are doing, we're right now looking at wholesale subject to, and we're playing with novation. So we're doing it, and owner financing is a thing we also talk to our, it's one of our strategies for our acquisitions people. So we might want somebody who can
Yeah.
be more versed in all those things and talking to sellers about it. Uh, what else do I have? So the hiring thing is still a challenge for me. I talked about it last week. Just going back and forth between hiring somebody from Matt Larson for acquisitions or an in-house person, and then figuring out what my next position is. And it might be after I talk to my strategic coach person, it might be an executive assistant who can actually be my buffer between me and the team and all the requests and questions and all that stuff, and just be a go-between and execute my vision more. We'll see. It might be 2 people. I don't know. So that's it. And then, going hand in hand with that is I just have more to do than I'm able to do, which is part of being a business owner. But I haven't been clearly able to see the path to delegation or the correct who on the team to give some stuff to. So I feel like there are more, and who is reference to who, not how. Like he says, not how am I going to do this, but who's going to do it. So I know I need to hire, and that's my big challenge is just analysis paralysis or not being clear about the source of where these people are coming from, etc.
Yeah.
And then from last week, I said I wanted to 2x my lead generation, so I just wanted to check in as from accountability standpoint about what I've done. Like I said, our acquisitions lead manager reviewed and gave feedback on the cold caller, so that was one step just to see where we're at with that. I asked our SMS manager to increase daily volume So we were at about 1.5 SMS per day, and now we're up closer to 2, and just keep pushing that and see how high he can go before we add a second person. And then 2,000 SMS per day is when I say 2. And then direct mail. We've been using this one company, and they've been a little bit slow on response time and just inconsistent with us. So I reached out to a company I've worked with previously and asked if we could do a similar yellow letter with them, and we can. So I think I'm actually going back to my previous company for direct mail, and we've got the list pulled and we're ready to
Nice.
send that out this week. So we're going to increase our direct mail. We're going to continue to bump up our SMS and probably add a second person to manage that. And then cold caller will probably double down on that, but it's just a question of whether we're doing in-house or another one from the service. I'll probably do an in-house person and just compare and contrast the two, even though it does mean more training and management. I'll try and get some of the team to do some of that. Uh,
Yeah.
and then, yeah, so for this week, I want to define the role that I need as far as the uh, chief operating officer, business manager, executive assistant, whether that's 1 or 2 posts, and then post for that job and start to interview. I want to hire an acquisitions this week, a person who can negotiate with sellers on the phone and handle some of these leads, because we're going to bump up our leads. And then, yeah, we just need to, with the direct mail, I just have to get clear on what the volume is we want to do every month, and do that.
Mhm.
So that's what I've got for accountability. So anything from the
Nice.
challenges that you have any thoughts about, I'm open to, or accountability for that matter. My challenges were the cold caller, the hiring, and just getting clear on the positions and the source of the hires. Those have been my main things.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Well, yeah, I think Matt's thing this week was really good. I took some notes and I could share those with you. I think I need to go back and take some more notes, but I really liked that presentation he gave. And one of the things, I mean, you were on there too, but one of the things that I liked is that obviously he does a DIS test on everyone, and I'm
Yeah,
sure you could do the Colby or a different kind of personality test. But what I liked is that he said once he gets that back, they review it. And well, first of all, that's on the VA to go and do that. He's like, this is where you do the DIS test, go do it, and then come back to me. That'll weed out a bunch of them.
yeah,
And then once they do, if they do that and they send you back their DIS test, then while you're reviewing that, you give them another task to do immediately,
yeah,
and you see how they respond to that. So
yeah,
this is new to me. It's something I've never done before. I don't know if you have, but I really enjoyed that idea. And then also, I'm looking at my notes here. I really like the column. I'm kind of just talking out loud to myself also, but I really like the idea he said where when you bring on a new hire, you create a spreadsheet for them with question and answer.
yeah,
And as they go throughout their day, they fill out question, 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 and then you do a quick meeting with them at the end of each day and answer, 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 and you come up with those together and you ask them, what would you do? And then based on what they say, you're like, okay, yeah, you nailed it, or okay, that's good, but I would do it this way. And then you fill out this spreadsheet together, and it's a working document for your entire team. So I really enjoyed that also. But yeah, I don't know if I'm helping you at all, but I was just sharing that, I guess, with the audience too. But as far as hiring, I definitely would encourage you to hire your own cold caller and definitely try it out. It's not something I've totally given up on. It's just right now in my business, I'm enjoying the hands-off approach more in terms of cold callers. But it definitely can work, and especially for you guys where you're doing a bunch of variety of different things, and you kind of want to tone your pitch to based on what the lead is saying. I think that could be a good idea for you guys to hire someone
yeah,
on your own and split test it for sure. But also, to give you just a little bit of feedback, with our leads, it's the majority are not good leads, or not, I shouldn't say that, but they're not interested leads, so you're still going to run into that. I think with any channel, like with our texting, we send out whatever, a couple thousand a day, each of us, and probably 90-95% don't want to sell or just say F off, so it's kind of the same thing with cold calling. Even when the leads do come in and they're supposed to be like good leads, they're mostly not. So I would just share that. But I do think you could probably get better results because your business is different than mine, where you're doing a bunch of different exit strategies. So I think that's definitely a good idea to try to bring someone on and train them yourself. The hardest thing about that, though, I would say in my experience, is the dialer. And so I would encourage you to check out I think there's only three main dialers, which is Call Tools, Ready Mode, and Mojo. So I would encourage you to check those three out and just see which one you think is going to be easiest for you or your team, because they're very different. Mojo is the easiest, but it's the least effective. And I think Call Tools is the most complex, but also the most effective. So it's kind of a catch 22 there.
What is it? Call
But
tools, ready mode,
yeah, there's that. And then what's that?
Mojo, call tools, and ready mode are the $3.
Yeah, those are the three that most people use, in real estate. There's another one I heard of called Kixie. I don't know if you've heard of that one, but it's Kixie, and that's another one I've heard of recently. And then, I'm sure if you just Googled like auto or predictive dialer or something, you'll find a bunch of software companies that do that. But I've just heard, most people in real estate use those main three.
Yeah.
But yeah, in terms of hiring, I think we talked about this offline, when we were texting and back and forth, but I would definitely recommend you try Matt Larson for acquisition. I think that would be good for you, especially if you're going to bring on a cold caller and then possibly an executive assistant that you're going to have to take time to hire and train. I think it would be nice for you to bring on someone that's kind of plug and play that you don't have to do all that with.
Yeah.
So I would encourage you to try it, but you could definitely bring on another one yourself and do just as well. So, either way. But yeah, that would be my opinion on the acquisition side of things. And then executive assistant, I think, is a great idea. That's something that I'm working towards too, but I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, I think that in coach, they push you towards that too, just to get you above the fray in strategic.
Yeah. And that's someone who could not only help you with all the minutia, like ordering direct mail lists and data and all that stuff, but also booking travel for you and doing all kinds of stuff for you, doing your emails for you, stuff like that.
Schedule. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hardly check my email anymore anyway, but yeah, it would be better to just have somebody say these 3 emails are the ones that I have a question for you on, and like filter all the rest.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thanks for the feedback.
Yeah.
I hope that brings some value to people, and it's the conversation is useful. With the sub 2 thing, like if you're a wholesaler and you have motivated sellers, but they are, sorry, I'm scrolling through my thing at the same time. If you have motivated sellers, but they have high equity or low equity or a loan in place, that's still a deal that can be done. And you can go find Pace Morby teaches subject to, and also William Tingle. I like both those guys. William is really down to earth, and his podcast lays it all out for you in the first 5 to 10 episodes. Everything you need is in there. You can really just listen to that and do a subject to deal. But he has a mastermind too. This is not a plug for William or Pace. They're just two good teachers. And also, I can help you, or if you feel more comfortable, I could JV with you on sub twos because I like doing them. But it's a good option to, you're already generating these leads. If you have lower equity leads with high motivated sellers, don't waste that deal. Do something with it. That's what I would say.
Yeah.
All right. Well, before we wrap it up, any quotes or inspiration or appreciations, Jasper?
Yeah, I don't have any quotes or anything, but I can do appreciations real quick. I have really been appreciating the property runners that we work with. Duncan is one of them that we share, and I can send you Jonathan's info as well, but he helps me out with Cumberland County and surrounding because that's a bit far from Duncan. But him and Duncan are just so helpful, and I really appreciate those guys and anyone like them. But they do a variety of tasks for us, and also for anyone who's still listening. If you guys, I think we mentioned this before, but if you guys need any help with pictures, lockboxes, various tasks that require someone to drive either somewhere you're not local or somewhere you don't have time to go to, then a great resource can be mobile notaries, and so that's what I'm talking about here. But I really appreciated those guys. They just helped me so much getting contracts, getting seller docs, and lockbox photos. Like I literally couldn't do my business without them. So just these two guys, like they helped me so much. So I'm just really grateful for them. And also enjoyed doing this with you today, and appreciate the feedback and you sharing. Yeah, I'm excited for you too to do another sub two deal and see how you're going into that this year. I'm excited for you for that too. So that's awesome. And yeah, I think lastly, I've really been enjoying Matt Larson's meeting, and I appreciate him making it so cheap and affordable for everyone, and still providing value that far exceeds the price tag. So
Oh yeah.
really grateful for that, and especially especially this one this week seemed to be really timely for me, and I think you both. So
Yeah.
I'm excited for him to hopefully do more on building a team and hiring people in the future. So yeah, I think I'm all in with that.
Nice. Thanks for checking in. Yeah, and for anybody who's listening, we'll put this in the notes. I'm starting to make notes now so we can actually put some notes when we post the podcast. But um, Matt Larson's an investor who's done 4,000 deals, been doing it for 18 years, and worked with Tony Robbins and other people. But he's very down to earth, good teacher of just nuts and bolts, common sense, how to invest and wholesale and succeed. And his mastermind is called Deal Lab, and it's really affordable. So even if you're just starting out, it's a great investment in yourself and your company, I would say. Again, we don't get any kickback for this or anything. It's just something that's a good, solid value for growing your business. So yeah, I appreciate that
Yeah,
too. I appreciate you for turning me on to Matt Larson, Jasper, and the Deal Lab, and just really glad I joined it. And I was like, well, I'm already in a mastermind this year, but it's once a week meeting and a lot of resources there, and it's great. So I'm really glad I joined. And
yeah,
I appreciate you doing this meeting with me every week. I always get a ton of value from meeting with you, Jasper, and hearing about your business and what you're doing. And you always share tips and tricks and tools and stuff. Um, and I appreciate real estate always, every day, just for the opportunity it affords to expand my income and my quality of life. And that there's not really a ceiling on it. You can just keep learning and growing within real estate and making more money as you do so. So I'm grateful for that. Um,
yeah.
I wrote down a quote from Naval Ravikant, who's somebody I've been really diving deeply into his work lately. But he says, what do you say? It's about authenticity. Escape competition through authenticity is the quote. And like his idea is that in the modern age, one of the ways to get leverage in the world is to be authentic, to be authentically yourself. And the internet is, completely wide open as a frontier. And you see a lot of people on YouTube and Instagram and everywhere else just being themselves. And they are able to monetize that. That's not the only thing he means, but the more you, even in a wholesaling business, the more you specialize in your niche and do what you do well and make your business the business that works for you, uh, you escape competition because you're doing something nobody else can do because nobody else is like you. So escape competition
Yeah.
through authenticity. I like that one. And that's all I've got. You got anything else before we sign off?
No, I think that's it. Anyone who's still listening, thank you for listening. And like you mentioned before, if you're interested in doing any sort of sub two or creative deals, definitely reach out to my dad, Mark Cool, on Facebook, and he'd be happy to help you with your deals. And if you guys want to reach out to me for anything, just Jasper Cool on Facebook. And yeah, thanks for listening. We'll see you on the next one.
And Jasper's done a ton of wholesale deals and is very knowledgeable and very good at it. A lot of people go to him and ask him to help them, and he's very generous from what I've seen. All right. Well, thanks for listening, everyone. See you next time.